Not with a scream, not with a slammed door, not with a shattered cup, but with silence. The kind that settles after words you can't take back. The kind that creeps down the hallway like October fog over a lake, cold, impenetrable, foreboding a storm. It was with this silence their last dinner ended. And with it, her revenge began. Martha sat in the armchair by the window, watching Michael wash the dishes. His movements were mechanical, habitual, as if he weren't scrubbing grease off plates, but the last remnants of what they once called their marriage. She said nothing, not because she'd forgiven him, but because she'd decided words were no longer needed. Words had betrayed her that evening by the pool, when she'd heard his laugh, light, almost boyish, and saw him lean toward their neighbor Lisa to adjust the strap of her swimsuit. A gesture that might have seemed friendly, if not for the way he looked into her eyes. As if he'd just remembered what it felt like to be desired. 15 years. 15 years she'd made him oatmeal each morning, ironed his shirts, canceled trips to see friends because the kids are little, he's tired from work, it's just not the right time. For 15 years, she'd believed their love was bedrock. But it turned out to be paper. And he'd lit it without even noticing the flame. But Martha wasn't about to burn first. Michael felt her gaze on his back. He knew her silence wasn't weakness. Martha had never been weak. She was like the old oaks in their yard, calm on the surface, but with roots that ran deep, gripping, unshakable. He knew, when she went quiet, she'd made a decision. And that scared him more than any outburst. He'd tried to explain that night. Said nothing had happened, it was just a joke, that Lisa had leaned in herself, that he was only helping. Helping? Martha had echoed, her voice free of tears, free of anger, only ice. You helped her feel beautiful. And reminded me I stopped being a woman to you long ago. Just a wife. Just a mother. Just background noise. He'd had no reply. Because it was true. Martha made her first move the next morning. Michael woke to the smell of coffee, but not the kind he was used to. Not the dark, rich brew with a hint of almond she'd made for years. This was light. Almost bland. Frowning, he walked into the kitchen. Martha stood at the stove in her robe, back turned. The coffee's wrong, he said, trying to keep his tone neutral. Oh, right, she replied without turning. I figured, if you don't care what I cook, why waste time making what you like? Now I brew it the way I like. He opened his mouth, then closed it. This wasn't rebellion. It was a signal. I'm no longer your servant. Of course, the kids sensed it too. 13-year-old Emily grew quieter, locking herself in her room more often. 10-year-old Jack asked, Are you getting divorced? No, Martha answered. We're just relearning how to listen to each other. She hadn't lied. She just didn't mention they were no longer listening to understand, but to find weaknesses. Michael started noticing changes. His shirts weren't the ones he liked to wear. His favorite dessert vanished from dinner. His spot on the couch was suddenly buried under pillows. Small things. But each one pricked like a needle under the skin. He tried to talk. Martha, can we talk? About what? She asked, eyes on her laptop screen. About how you were in a meeting last night while Lisa posted a photo of wine on Instagram with the caption, Sometimes help comes from where you least expect it. He paled. It's not what you think. I'm not thinking anything, Michael. I'm just observing. And removing everything unnecessary from our lives, including your habits. She didn't yell. Didn't demand a divorce. Didn't stage scenes. She simply began erasing him from her life, one grain at a time. And it was more terrifying than any argument. Because he realized she wasn't forgiving him. She was leaving. Not physically, not yet. But her soul had already crossed the threshold. And he didn't know how to bring her back. Because he didn't know what to hold on to. Everything he'd loved about her, her care, her tenderness, her ability to read his moods, was gone. All that remained was a woman with cold eyes and a smile like a blade. So he tried what he thought would work. He bought flowers. A lavish bouquet of white roses, her favorite. Left them on the kitchen table with a note. I'm sorry. I'll fix this. Martha found the bouquet that evening. She stared at it for a long time. Then carefully pulled the flowers from the vase and tossed them into the outdoor trash bin. She kept the vase. At dinner, she said, Thanks for the vase. It's beautiful. The flowers, she shrugged, were dusty. He clenched his fists under the table. For the first time, he felt this wasn't a game. It was war. And he was losing. But Martha's revenge wasn't cruel. She didn't want to destroy him. She wanted him to feel it, the emptiness he'd created, the pain of betrayal, the disorientation of realizing you're no longer seen. One evening, while the kids were at their grandmother's, she sat across from him at the table. The house was quiet, but this silence was different, not icy, but expectant. Do you remember how we met? She asked. He nodded, surprised. At the library. You were reading Kerouac. I said he was overrated. And do you remember what I said? He hesitated. You said I didn't understand freedom. I said, freedom isn't escape. It's the responsibility of choosing, every single day, who you love. She paused. You stopped choosing me, Michael. Not because I became worse. But because you forgot that love is work. Not euphoria. Not passion. Work. And you got tired of working. He couldn't argue. Because he knew she was right. The next day, Michael didn't go to work. He stayed home. That morning, he made breakfast oatmeal with almond, just the way she liked it. He ironed her blouse. Cleaned the kids' room they'd both ignored for a week. He did it all in silence, not hoping for forgiveness, but because it might be the only way to stay near her at all. When Martha returned from her run, she found the set table, fresh coffee, the tidy living room. She said nothing, just sat down and began to eat. He sat across from her. 5 minutes passed. Then 10. Why did you do this? She finally asked. Because I realized, if I don't start over from the very beginning, with the smallest things, I'll lose you forever. Not because you'll leave, but because I'll no longer be worth staying for. She looked at him. For the first time in months, something warm flickered in her eyes. Not forgiveness, but a chance. You know revenge isn't victory, she said softly. It's an attempt to regain control. And I'm tired of controlling. I want to trust. But trust isn't given. It's earned. I'm ready to earn it. Every day. Every day. She nodded. Didn't smile. But she nodded. 2 months passed. They never spoke of Lisa. Never mentioned that poolside evening. They simply lived. Michael stopped working late. Started driving the kids to school. Martha made oatmeal again, but now she asked, do you want oatmeal? And if he said no, she made it just for herself. Without resentment. Without silence. One evening, as they sat on the porch with glasses of wine, hers was juice, he'd quietly quit drinking, though he never said so aloud. Emily came out and said, You're back, like before. Not like before, Martha replied. Better. Because now we know how easily it can all be lost. Michael took her hand. She didn't pull away. The revenge ended not with triumph, but with a different kind of silence, the kind that follows a storm. The waves have calmed, the trees haven't fully healed, but the sky is clear. And you can finally breathe. He hadn't earned forgiveness. But he'd been given a chance to try again. And she hadn't forgiven. But she decided it was worth trying. Because sometimes, revenge isn't a strike, it's a mirror. And in it, you don't see the person you want to punish. You see who you've become.